Hello and welcome. My name is Andy Solkeld and this is my UKTC mission pack review. And today we're talking through mission 22, Conversion, and this would be round 7 at a UKTC event, which would typically be a day 3 or a final or semi-final, depending on how the games are or how the tournament is structured. So Conversion is a hold 1, hold 2, hold more. Mission rules of you only receive your Battleforge CP bonus if your Warlord is on the battlefield or in a transport on the battlefield. Very important because as a Sisters player, if Vahl dies and you lose your CP benefit, you often lose your ability to punch up quite hard because you can lose access to things like Tear Them Down, Savage Twist, etc. A lot of your output strats go, and a lot of your kind of sneaky stuff. So just be careful with your Warlord. For mission scoring, at the end of each player's turn, player whose turn it is, scores 2 VP for controlling 1 or more No Man's Land's objectives. They can score 4 VP for controlling their opponent's deployment zone objective, and they lose a VP if they do not control their deployment zone objective. Now, the reason this is important is on these missions, you can look at it of scoring. If you and your opponent tie primary, you score 8s every turn for holding 2. So you hold your objective and say the one above your corner deployment where you start. You hold 8, so you get 4 times 8, which is 32. Then you are going to control 1 or more No Man's Land's objective, which is likely going to be the one you're already holding. So that's going to get you 10 for just doing that. So that takes you up to 42 total. So what this mission means is if you want to cap primary, all you need to do is go second, because you could get 4 from just holding the middle and getting 12 at the end of the game, or you could control your opponent's deployment zone objective once for the same effect, which is very useful to and important to be aware of if you are going first. It means you can also cap primary whilst keeping pace with them. And the reason I like bringing this up is as a Sisters player, Adepta Sororitas, you are often in the very lucky position of having good secondaries. But you are weak at holding primary because you can get shot off, assaulted off. Pretty much anything that points at you will kill you. So holding that primary can be very tough. And this is a way for you to stay in it using your or leveraging your Dogmata to grant obsec to fast-moving assault units. So I just want to put that out there right now, because that will inform a lot of the later discussions. If you haven't looked at it or haven't watched it yet, I did a video earlier in this series, which I believe was the third one, because it's day 1, round 3, called Death and Zeal. And these are the same deployment zones and the same firing lanes. So everything you see here is largely set up in exactly the same way as Death and Zeal. So I don't want to, I won't make this video longer than it needs to be, because you can go back and you can see all the things I talk about there. Key things to be aware of. For you to get onto the objective to your north, that's 9-inch movements required turn 1. To get over to your right or the east, trying to make sure I get these correct, that's 12 inches. So often what you will see a lot of people do is they will try to turn this into, I believe it's called hammer and anvil, where you're going lengthways. Could be wrong, but basically take the objective that's 9 inches away from you. And the way you set this up in most instances is either have a forward deployer that can deploy onto it, or you have, say, a Rhino or a transport with 6-inch moving infantry. So 6 inches gets out plus 3 inches from the Rhino, 9 inches you're on the objective. Or you have, say, a jump troop that moves 12 onto the objective. I often get these deployments wrong Corner deployments are very hard as sisters because we don't have a lot of fast moving units. I cannot wait for them to do sacrosancts on horseback or something like that. That would be such a fantastic addition. But until we get something like that, we're going to have to use Zephyrim, we're going to have to use Rhinos and things like that to just get the mobility. What you'll notice from looking at the terrain is the two diagonals, so top left, bottom right, have pretty much one ruin in them. And that's it. It makes them incredibly hard to hold, incredibly hard to screen, and also opens up some insane firing angles around them because there's just nothing else there blocking line of sight. And what it means is you need to very quickly make it behind that ruin with anything that you can to try to hold it and stabilize on it. What I kind of like doing on this one, as you will see from my deployment and also the kind of blue arrows that are marked, is I will typically set up my Repentia in the bottom ruin, my Retributors towards the back. My Repentia I will use to assault my opponent's objectives, to try to deny primary or to hold them back in their deployment zone area. And I will use, and then as they go out, my Retributors will walk forwards and into their positions to kind of take their spots. The things that are very important on this mission is because of the way the deployment zone is a cutout circle of 9-inch radius, 18-inch diameter. That means that the two closest corners, you can set up a 7-inch charge because you're 12.7 inches away from you, which means you move 6 out and then you're 6.7 inches away. Actually, it's a 6-inch charge because that would get you to within an inch by rolling 6 inches on it. So be aware of that. Obviously, very few people actually deploy on that corner, but it's something to be aware of because many people deploy in their safe ruin. So what they could do is they could then redeploy into, if they're an army that has access to redeploys, you want to make sure that you can actually not defend, so maybe line Repentia along the top there, but if they do go for that 6-inch charge, then you can fight on death and maybe do some damage back to them. So just something to be aware of because of that. It also means that you can have very, very aggressive turn ones where they can just charge you. Zephyrim are absolute monsters for this because they move 12 inches. You know they're going to have a 6-inch charge from across anywhere on the diameter, which means that it can just be like, oh, I'm in your deployment zone. You roll a 6 on miracle dice, you're straight in, and you're attacking exactly what you want to do. So you can do some very brutal alpha striking and also move blocking as you suddenly create this kind of wrap around them getting out of their deployment zone. And then if you can back it up by doing it again next turn, and next turn you can just slowly get away on primary. Unlike on Death and Zeal, this one does not have sticky objectives. Like Death and Zeal, you don't have to go in the middle, but what it means is you will continually have to have something sat on your objectives, which can often mean being out in the open or in one very small ruin that can be very hard to defend. As well as having my Repentia set up to assault, what I often do, and I talked about in the Death and Zeal video, is I will move the Castigator and Vahl up along the kind of west board edge to then be able to use the firing lanes that I've shown there to just kind of screen out, be Grant Lookout Sir for Vahl, and just try to keep shooting going down that way. This gets riskier because obviously you could lose your Warlord. So if you're concerned of them being able to assault her, just don't move her. Just use the Castigator for that purpose and use her to play the angle game around the obscuring and be protected by Repentia. outside of that, this map will play out very similar to the way other games play. If you want to start a trading war, and your opponent doesn't have good shooting, like if they're a pure melee army, you can very easily walk something onto the middle, and then they kind of have to come to you. It's just one of those things to be aware of. Sisters trade very well, but actually trading on these objectives can actually be detrimental because you don't want to run out of assets. My personal play style is one of only hold the bare minimum of objectives to be able to score as much as I possibly can. With regards to secondaries on this one, defend the shrine and leap of faith, as always, are kind of safe and sturdy. Be aware that you are very likely going to nominate the top left objective as your shrine, and what that means is your opponent may try to dogpile it, so be prepared to move your force up to protect that, and use things like the Dogmata to grant obsec to units and everything like that as you try to just hold it. The last thing I just want to mention, as I mentioned in Death and Zeal, Retributors with 24-inch range can be stood on the top of your big L ruin and have range onto the two middle objectives, which can be very important against factions like, say, demons that can't be granted obscuring and things like that. But at the same point, you just need to be. It's only relevant in a very few niche cases because of that. What I would typically do with my 2x10 Retributors is I would slowly walk them forward over the course of the game to get angles either through the middle or onto my shrine objective at the top. The two ruins that you will be staging in, just in and just out of your deployment, be aware that they have windows, so your opponent can touch them from the outside and shoot in. So just make sure that if it looks like your opponent could set that up with some fast-moving shooting, that you're aware to be able to kind of attack them first if possible. But anyway, that is conversion, and I've just realised that I've actually got these in the wrong order. So apologies for this. Conversion is actually round 7, whereas the one we just talked about was round 8. So apologies for that. And no, this is correct. I'm just one further ahead than I thought. But anyway, this was conversion, and we'll be back talking about round 8 next. Thank you very much for tuning in.